You would have hated me.
Where do the best burgers come from?
Shake Shack.
Shake Shack.
Five Guys.
What is happening? Man, I was very excited to do this podcast. That answer just went so many different directions. See, not get into that. Well, let's get into it.
You all said Shake Shack?
I meant
Are you
to say
kidding me?
Burger 7 because they're halal.
Oh, Amber doesn't eat halal.
Coming from you, Mr. Five Guys.
He never denied it though.
Five Guys is halal. What are you talking about? Yeah, so clearly we have a fourth voice on the podcast. It
Hello,
is
people.
the legendary person that's been on every podcast but hasn't been on every podcast.
Whoa.
You've heard us mention her. She's always here, but not here. She
Always
is
here. The basement is always here.
The basement.
Aisha, Amber's roommate. Can we get some
Hello.
snaps for her?
Yes.
Aisha, what does it feel like to finally be on the podcast?
Well, I have to say, from hearing it from my room, it's pretty refreshing because, like, I always hear you guys talking about stuff, and I'm like, ooh, I wish I could have some input, but I can't.
That's
Now you
crazy.
can.
So like
Now
you
you
always
can.
hear us, and then you're always like, man, I wish I could say something.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But
You
now
should
I
just-
feel special because you guys let me talk in this episode. So
you
thanks,
sh-
guys.
You should just come out sometimes and just like
Just yell something.
Just scream your opinion. So we
Literally.
can
Like,
hear.
I disagree.
I hate this. Just kidding. You guys have awesome opinions.
Oh,
It's
thank
also
you.
very entertaining to have
Oh.
a psycho person on the podcast just coming in and screaming.
Oh, yeah.
I disagree.
The cameras would love that. You're just running through
Yeah.
everything.
That'd be awesome.
Well, thank you everybody for tuning in to another episode of Strange Flavors. This is brought to you by Alif Theory. My name is Faras.
My name is Ponton.
My name is Amber.
He finds this so funny. It's if anybody's ever watched Pink Panther, like the dude's assistant, his name is Ponton. And Shamir thinks it's hilarious. He won't stop laughing at it. I'm pretty sure that's his name. I'll show you the clip afterwards. So we just finished up most of our shows. We have one last show left at Harford Community College this Thursday, April 26th. It's going to be at like 12 p.m. Yeah, so look out for that if you're in the country line.
Bel Air area.
Great time.
Come on through.
And shoot us an email if you want to send us any comments, questions, concerns, anybody that you feel like should be on the podcast.
Or anybody
if
who
you
should
want
be
to
kicked
be
off.
Ooh.
Oh, so she's referring to herself.
Whoa.
Yeah, and your music. If you're a music producer, a rapper,
Or a
a
country
yodeler,
Yeah, yodeler.
send us an email.
Especially if you yodel.
strangeflavorspodcast@gmail.com. Subscribe to us and follow us on all our social media. You can find us Strange Flavors on the podcast app, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, SoundCloud, and YouTube, of course. Thank you for subscribing and turning on the notification bell. We appreciate
Swag, YouTube gang.
So, Coachella has happened this past week. Yeah.
Yes.
True.
Pretty exciting stuff that came out of that. One of the biggest conversations that people have been talking about is this is Beyonce, right? Baychella, they're calling it Baychella.
Baychella.
So I don't know if you guys got to see any of it, but it was pretty incredible
I
what
saw highlights.
Beyonce was doing. So she had like this entire army of dancers and this band, like full live band, and just dancing away. And how long was it? Like it was like
It was pretty
Too
long.
long. I feel like that's
Hour?
a lot for Coachella.
for just yeah.
like music awards, I can imagine that, but like Coachella,
Like this was
that's-
a Beyonce full-fledged
and it was like what, 2 a.m?
lifetime concert.
It was early in the morning, right?
Was it that
It
early?
was
That's
literally-
crazy.
Yeah, it was like super late at night.
Dang. So out of this conversation has rised up in social media comparing the best performers alive, and in that discussion is primarily Beyonce and Michael Jackson. So they're saying like there's some people arguing that Beyonce is the best performer of all time, and then some people are like, no way, it's Michael Jackson. Like Michael Jackson is the king of all that. And just for this image that's going around, it has their comparing different statistics. So it, like albums, Beyonce has 6, Mike has 6. Movies, Beyonce has 12 and Mike has 1. Tours, Beyonce has 10, Mike has 4. Grammys, Beyonce has 20, Mike has 19. Billboard Awards, 34 Beyonce and 6 for Mike. And for Beyonce, she has over 160 million records sold, and Michael Jackson has over 350 million records sold.
It's also not a fair comparison because
Right.
huge time differences. But
Yeah. I mean, initially, what do you guys think? You have to pick one. Who are you going with?
Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson or
quick.
Beyonce?
Michael Jackson for me easily, because at the time, even like 20, 30 years ago, he was doing some crazy stuff that people don't even do nowadays still.
Like what?
Well, there was one Pepsi commercial he did, and he like recorded that live session, and that's where he like got burned like alive. And there was another performance where like he was flying on like this little crane thing, and a fan jumped on stage, and the fan was like trying to like hug him, and he held the fan and was performing while like the fan was like, you know, it was like a candid moment, but like he was doing these crazy things while he was like flying, and he was holding that fan while like the fan
Okay.
was just like, oh my gosh.
Okay, but we're talking about best performer alive, and we're talking about everything that they're doing performance-wise.
Yeah, like that's crazy performance because like, you know, people would like stop or like
Yeah, but
things
you're
would
talking
happen.
about people stopping.
What? Well, his sets were just like crazy too.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. What do you guys think? Where
I'd
you-
have to say, I think you can't really compare the two. In my personal
You have to pick one,
opinion.
Aisha.
I can only pick one.
You have to pick one, yeah. Who's the better performer?
Well,
Live
I would have to
performer.
say at the time,
Yeah.
I would say Michael Jackson. Just because at the time, like the resources he had, like music industry wasn't as big back then. He was kind of like the spark. And Beyonce, she's amazing. She's absolutely great.
Mm-hmm.
But you can probably compare to the other, like Lady Gaga, like she's at the level but higher. But Michael Jackson, like he didn't have a lot of competition because he was the best. He raised the bar in everything. Whereas Beyonce kind of like everyone's at the same level. So I think that's how I would comprehend it. So I would go with Michael Jackson.
Okay. Are you Team Mike, Team Beyonce?
Like, okay, I
You can't say Cardi B, Amber.
no, okay, so before I was saying Cardi B, I was actually always like, oh my god, Beyonce. I love Beyonce, but I can't say either or right now because the only reason why is because Michael Jackson did a lot of like performances where he himself wowed, and like for what he was doing, I think it was great. Beyonce, like you said, she had an army of people dancing with her, and it was really amazing. I think that's a difference in itself. They have two completely different styles, like just in that. And I think that there's too many like time, not just in time differences, but in performance differences, music differences. Like for what they are in their times, I think they're both very incredible. But if they were in the same time period, I'd be able to choose one, but I can't. So
I think if
You
Michael,
have to pick one.
I'm not choosing one.
I think Michael Jackson
You
today.
can't just do that. Everybody's
doing
picking
that.
one.
I'm sorry.
I agree, though. Michael Jackson today would be like probably at the level.
Yeah.
I think that if we had in the same time period, like I think it would give us a better picture.
I think Michael Jackson would be better if today, because back then, like he was just doing
But you-
crazy
Right.
things.
But you can't compare that either because we're looking at what Beyonce is against and we're looking at what Michael Jackson was at the time. You can't just say like, oh, if Beyonce was, because we
What's
don't know what
your
Beyonce
answer?
would have
What's
been
your
back
answer?
then. I'm saying Beyonce.
Okay, true.
I'm saying Beyonce because I'm a huge Michael Jackson fan. I don't listen to Beyonce like that at all. I don't watch any of her performances. I don't watch anything. But when you're comparing a live performance, I'm going with Beyonce over Michael Jackson because I think Michael Jackson, when people look at his performances, as SHAH-AMEER was like mentioning, it's so much about the fans and their shock for Michael Jackson. He had people passing out all over the place, and he was doing things to them. What he like he had like little moves that he would do, and it was just this like iconic value that he had, that he would do like one little like bam, and it would just be like the fans go crazy and pass out.
Right.
And it was like, that's amazing. And he has that value, that shock factor that's just like so, it's only like one of a kind type thing.
Dude, he was flying around 40 years ago. Like he was, and he had like a whole army 40 years ago.
I love it.
I know,
love it.
but I'm saying like you can make that comparison like nowadays. Like even
Wait, I didn't hear your Beyonce side to this though.
Beyonce is like, I mean, when you compare the endurance going on for that long and performing as much as she has, I think her being, I really think that her being a woman has to do with this. Like, I feel like if Beyonce was a dude, I feel like that dude would be a beast. They would be like, how does this man do this? but because she's a woman, there's not as many people paying attention to her. I myself said I don't pay attention to her, and I just don't like her music that much. I think it's like
how you gonna come at Lemonade?
It doesn't excite me. It just like
I think it definitely speaks to girls more.
Yeah, and I think that's with girls in general in music. Like when you go to a concert, a girl concert versus a guy's concert. Yeah. At a guy's concert, you'll see like mix. You'll see dudes with their girls and girls there. You'll see guys there, like singles on both sides. But you know, like a Beyonce concert, a Taylor Swift concert, whatever, it's gonna be predominantly women.
And then like the males with that woman.
Sometimes, yeah. So it's like, I don't know, because I'm trying to put the bias aside and just like my love for Michael Jackson aside and just think of like who the better performer is. And I think that Beyonce is just like,
I mean, she's
doing
definitely
a lot.
Amazing.
Yeah, like I think it's crazy, but like, you know, nowadays like everyone's one-upping each other, so I feel like, you know, you kind of have to. She has to do that, you know.
Yeah, so that's, I mean,
like I'm just saying, like times do matter a lot.
But even when she was like pregnant, man.
Yeah, that was crazy too.
Was like, she looked like a goddess up there. She still had an army of people surrounding her, just like doing it. But that's the thing is, I don't know, and I hate saying this out loud, but I don't know if Beyonce could hold her own on stage and be that.
So you're Michael Jackson?
No.
Yes, you are.
No,
yes,
I'm not.
We're saying it for you.
I'm not. I'm saying there's two completely different things. Michael Jackson can do his own thing. I don't think that like Beyonce could do that, but
I so team Michael Jackson.
But if if Michael Jackson tried to do what Beyonce's doing, I don't think he would do it as well as Beyonce does.
There's so many factors.
All right. So I have one of those deep questions.
Okay.
That I was thinking about. So I want to know what your guys' opinion is on this. Would you rather know less on certain matters for the sake of your happiness? So I say that thinking about like children, right? Children are all sort of innocent and they don't know as much about the world or how life works, so they just like to play, and they're not like depressed like adults can be. They're not in that same type of thing, you know, because an adult, he can be like going to work and have the same cycle of life, and he could know a lot of things that he or she didn't want to know. Kids, they're just like, they don't know that much, and so they're like more so, I guess, happy. Would you rather know less?
I'm gonna say no, only because I choose to consume the information that I do, and I very much know that by not consuming certain things that I could be happier, but I choose to listen to it because I'd rather be knowledgeable and cope with that rather than be unaware and happy, because then I just feel ignorant.
You wouldn't know that, though. You wouldn't know that you're ignorant.
But if I'm choosing to, then I would say that I would rather not do that. I like knowing and having to deal with it almost.
So personally for me, I would say I would want to actually know the information, because I feel like when you learn things, you're able to make a bigger impact and have a better understanding of things. And through learning, you learn about the bad side, and it makes you, it'll make you upset. But I think through the hard times is when a real person shines through, and where you can actually find your passion, where if you don't know anything, you're kind of living in this world that doesn't really exist.
What about the things that don't impact, like, you know, your ability to do something, or it's not about like some social issue that you can help? It's just like this knowledge that you now know. Like,
this is what I want to compare it to. So like, I feel like we were all like, and I know this doesn't need to be a political thing, but I'm gonna make it political really quickly for just a quick second. Like, I feel like when we had President Obama, we didn't like know a lot, and I was very happy with that at the time, because like he made us feel safe.
That's a good comparison.
And he would be like not telling us things because he didn't want to worry the country, and he felt like it was his responsibility to keep us like shielded away. And now that those blinders have been taken off, I appreciate that they have been taken off, because I can see what one way leads us and what the other way leads us. And I prefer what I see now, even though I appreciated what it was then.
Bam.
Dang.
So you're happy about Trump in a way.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that I also was happy about Obama thing in its time. So I was a kid then, and now I'm an adult.
I think my answer's pretty obvious. I mean, I would like the information. Like, I genuinely feel like a kid still, and I feel like I will for like even when I'm an adult, just because like that's always my mindset on life, and that's like my outtake on life, and I always approach the positives in life and stuff like that. So I feel like even getting in negative information, I still feel like in some way it is positive. Like, I can always find a positive to whatever negativity it is. And
you know what's funny?
What?
Somebody literally told me that they were like, I feel like not in a bad way, but SHAH-AMEER like has this very kid personality. That's so funny.
I genuinely feel that way. Like, I feel like a kid like all the time. I feel younger now than I did like 2 years ago or 3 years ago or 4 years ago.
Dang.
Yeah.
I literally, that's me too. And you can literally ask Amber, like, I'm a child.
Yeah, and I think it's great. Like, you're still independent and you're still like, you know, mature and whatever, but at the same time it's like you have that immature side, and you're just
Definitely.
And with that knowledge, you can be more immature, I feel like, in some sort of fashion.
Nice. Cool.
What was your answer?
I don't have an answer. I was just thinking about it.
Bro, what the heck?
You always do
This is
that.
not
What?
fair.
You can't
You gotta
ask
have
a
an
question
answer.
and
No,
not
I don't
answer.
have an. I was like, this is a question I was thinking
Okay,
of,
well,
and I'm like,
take us through your thought
I wonder.
process.
Yeah,
But then
take us
that's
through
why I
it.
asked you guys.
Okay,
Take
take
your
us through your
thought
thought
process.
process. What would you prefer?
No, I'll take you through the thought process, but hearing your opinions like helps me form my own, I guess. But like, I was thinking of like, when it comes to, for example, like gossiping and hearing things that you wish that like you didn't hear.
About yourself?
No,
Or
it
about
could be
other
about
people?
yourself. It could be about anything, anybody else, or like, whatever. Somebody says something weird, gross, unnecessary,
So basically everything
inappropriate.
you say.
Pretty much when I speak, no. And it's like that doesn't. I hear where you guys are coming from, but like those things don't add value to you, but maybe subconsciously they do. I don't know.
I mean,
interesting.
I feel like
Overall.
even then, like, I don't know, since I see everything as a positive, even though it may be negative.
Yeah.
I feel like in
Right.
some way, somehow, like, I can, you know, do something about it, or like subconsciously, or maybe just like, you know, be happy, or, you know, just do small little things. I feel like, you know, little things could change, and I always like believe in that, you know.
To be honest, like even in that situation, like me and Aisha were having a conversation last week at like 5 a.m. about how like, you know, like we were going, like basically we're listing things that we had just found out recently that like people were saying. And at the end of that conversation, I was like, okay, well now I'm comfortable with it and I don't have to worry about it. Like it's better for me to know it now, because like now that I know it, like whatever, cool, now it's done. Like I made the decision to be like, I don't care about this anymore.
And I think
Like,
it
I
makes
think
you
it's better
stronger
than-
too, which is what we were saying as
Right.
well. That if you're sheltered all the time and you don't hear those things and you get more offended in life, everyone's always going to have something to say.
True.
So when you
That's
do
good.
hear it, it's like, well, now that's another thing I've heard. Cool.
Yeah.
Whatever. Doesn't affect me.
Awesome. Well, we're going to be hearing from somebody very special today. Our guest on the show, our stranger, is NAUREEN KHAN. She's a Baltimore City high school teacher. She grew up sort of finding and questioning her identity as both being biracial and being Muslim. And she talks to us about how she teaches and learns from her students about diversity and the things that, you know, in today's age that sort of are the social issues and things like that, and how she deals with all of those things, especially looking and experiencing a different life than her students. And she also goes into defining the stereotypes that the city schools get and often get called like urban students and things like that. So it's our pleasure to introduce NAUREEN.
Yeah, I feel like I'm
Nice. In the intro too. That'd be perfect.
Just like, this is
Early on.
Noreen.
Oh my god, guys.
Why do you call her Beans?
Because her name is Noreen, but then we started calling her Rena, and then we started calling her Rena Bina. So now she's
Bina.
Beans. So
Yeah.
Bina became Beans.
How
Yeah.
long have you known her?
What, a decade?
Almost.
Decade. Wow.
Yeah.
Almost, yeah, 9 years.
Yeah, we became friends when I was, you were 9th grade, I was in 10th grade.
Yeah.
Is that a long time for girls? I think that's a really long time for girls.
It's a very long time.
For a friendship that's this consistent for this long, that's this close, yes.
I feel like girls go through best friends like all the time.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is I have had friends like throughout the years that I'm not that close to anymore. But like this particular friend group and like with Noreen, we've been consistently close for the past, 9 years or whatever.
That's awesome.
Dang.
So.
How do you feel about this podcast?
I'm excited. I'm honored to be on here.
Aw.
I'm a little bit intimidated.
She's tearing up. She's tearing up.
But why are you intimidated? This is your friend.
I know.
We're your friends.
But is
I know,
it-
but
is
now
the
it's a
equipment-
professional setting. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You're
So
like
it's
very
like-
supportive. I
Yeah.
think out of like all of Amber's friends that I know, like you're always like you got us balloons.
And Hafsa, don't
And
forget
Hafsa.
about Hafsa.
Hafsa is too. Yes,
Hafsa's
Hafsa
very
is too.
supportive.
Yeah.
But like you bought us balloons and like
Yeah.
all this stuff for
really
like
nice.
when we were doing Brown Code
Party.
season 2,
Right.
and you were actually on the first Brown Code.
I know.
How was that?
That was a little bit embarrassing.
You were
because
a
of
hit.
what I
You
said.
had one of the
Right.
best lines. So you were. I guess we need to talk about this.
No.
No. Okay.
You need to describe what happened.
Are we talking about what I think we're talking about?
I think
Yes.
we are.
Yeah.
But
Okay. I've matured
You've
since
matured.
then.
This was a year ago.
No, it wasn't.
No.
It
No,
was,
it was
2
like 2
years
years
ago.
ago.
Almost 3 years ago.
I've
I
been
think-
shamed into learning my lesson.
Okay, well, I mean, we don't have to talk about this.
But if you're interested, check out NAUREEN KHAN on season 1 of Brown Code.
Exactly.
So, have you always been like, this in tune with your cultural roots?
No, not at all. I remember,
What is it? You're like half and
yeah.
half, right?
So I'm half Algerian on my mom's side,
Okay.
and then my dad's side is Pakistani, and then I was born and raised here in Maryland, and I live in the county in Baltimore County, and I remember, it's very, it's very.
What?
When I'm sorry, I want her to say it. It's just there's just 2 different Noreens that like one that I knew and one that I know now. And
Yeah,
just-
no, that's what I'm
thinking
saying.
about
That's what
that.
I'm
Oh, you were
saying.
wildin'.
No, but before middle school, so like the neighborhood that I live in and like the middle school that I went to is very white. And white is the dominant race, and after that it's African American and Hispanic. So there weren't a lot of Middle Eastern people or even Arabs. So when I went to middle school, I felt like our family isn't really big in the brown community.
Isn't Arab Middle Eastern?
Well,
said
I'm
North.
North African. So it's
Oh,
not
okay.
the Middle East.
Got it.
But so there weren't a lot of Arabs or Paki people when I was growing up in middle school. So I used to tell people that like I'm not Muslim. And I used to like completely dissociate myself. I was completely
And now you out here in a
assimilated.
hijab.
Yeah, but at that time it's like my sisters are way older than me, and they were in college, and I was just kind of on my own raising myself because my parents worked. So I was completely assimilated into the Western culture, and I wanted to be like all the white people in my classes. So honestly, it was in 9th grade when I met Amber's cousin Nadia. She like transferred in, and I was already at the high school in freshman year. And it was the first time that I've seen like this brown girl who's awesome and who's like pretty westernized, but she still tries to incorporate her brown culture. And I was never around that. Like no one in my family was really like that. So like just for context, my family is the only family in America. Everyone else is either back home in Pakistan or back home in Algeria. So it's just us. So we don't have that community. On top of that, we're like biracial.
Did people think you were white when you were growing up?
Yeah, so I only started wearing my hijab when I was in college. So when I was in high school, I got Korean, I got Mexican,
Korean, wow.
I got Asian, everything but what I actually was. Yeah.
And it probably didn't help that you were telling people that you were white, right?
But that was in middle school.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and it's not
She's
like
changed, Amber.
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, so I was below 14 years old. So it was like I was pretty naive back then. and it's not like I would say, oh, I'm not brown or I'm not Algerian. It's just I wouldn't be proud about it, is what I mean, when I was in middle school.
So go ahead, continue with the
So
story.
when I met, our best friend, Nadia, it was the first time I was introduced to a girl who looked different and who looked like me. And then from that, I met 3 other girls who were already friends with Nadia as well, Amber being one of them. And they are the ones, I don't want to get emotional.
That's what you get emotional about your
Yeah,
friends?
because it's
Aw.
like those girls, like I didn't have, you guys were my sisters, and I didn't have that growing up. So it's like you guys were the ones who,
introduce you to the culture.
This is amazing.
This is okay. So before the podcast,
Yeah.
he was like, "Okay, if I cry, like, don't make fun of me." Like, yeah. But this is amazing because we've never had anybody cry on
Dude,
the podcast before.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm tearing
Let
up
them
right
out.
now, just because like the sound of your voice.
Aw.
Yo, it's
I
gonna be
love
a crying
that.
fest.
You're a very good friend. Like, I can tell.
I appreciate you being so much.
Thanks.
This is great. I don't know why, but
No.
I love when people cry.
Also, this is awesome because it shows like how strong your friendship is with Amber.
I think it's also because
And-
she's like sitting right here. So it's like,
Okay.
it's like weird because I knew coming into this podcast that it would be a lot of internal reflection.
Uh-huh.
And part of me was like, that's why I need a prep. So I didn't become like this. So
So you
Great
you
prep
literally
work.
like we just saw before you showed us on your phone, you have like pages of notes that you prepared for this podcast before.
yeah.
Like, what is that about?
That's just when I was in middle school and high school, I figured out how I learn, and I figured
I
out.
thought you were gonna say I've been writing those since middle school.
Oh, no.
This is the moment I've been waiting for. This is like American Idol for you right now, and we just told you yes.
Yeah.
All 3 of us just told you yes, and now you're crying because you're going to Hollywood.
Yeah, I
Wow.
mean, your approval means a lot. So.
Well, that does it for the podcast. Thank you for the promo. No, but okay. So
yeah.
since middle school and high school,
So I just about the pages thing, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So I just realized I'm not a very confident public speaker, which is weird because I ended up in teaching. So then if I write down all my thoughts, I become more confident with what I'm going to say verbally. So it's just
Wow.
like mental prep. It's like how you write an outline before you write an essay.
Do you do that
So-
while you teach right now?
No, not at this point because it's my second year and I already have a lot of experience and I got it down. But when I was doing my internship, I definitely had to be like that and write down literally word for word, verbatim, what I plan on saying in order to feel confident in front of 30 students who are looking at you and waiting for
Wow.
you to make a move.
So now, what is that? What do you teach?
So I teach government to freshmen and anthropology to 11th graders, and it's an IB school in Baltimore City.
You have anthropology?
Wow.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
What's it like to be a teacher with a hijab? I've never actually seen that before myself.
That's
but, like,
really cool.
What do your students mostly look like, and do you attract attention or questions with your hijab?
Well, when I started teaching, I've been a teacher for 2 years now. And when I started out, I had already worn my hijab for 3 years. So I felt pretty confident in my identity as a Muslim woman. So then going in, I didn't really feel any hesitation and I didn't feel any doubt. I felt perfectly fine. I wear hijab, but that's not the only thing I'm offering these students. But the people who were kind of afraid or were kind of hesitant for me were my family. And they were kind of like, they're brown and Arab. And they were kind of like, you're working in the city and you look like you're outwardly Muslim and we're just afraid for your safety. And I was just like, calm down, like it's fine, it'll be fine. But then when Donald Trump became president, I was still within my first year of teaching last year. And that's when my parents were even more scared, not because of like the students or anything, but just because.
You're in the city.
Exactly.
Wearing a
But
hijab.
yeah, but that also like, excuse me, that also like plays into the stereotypes of working in the city, and that also made me kind of shrug it off my shoulders when my family would say that, because they don't really work in the city, and they don't really, my dad's only exposure to the city is working in 7-Elevens and his stores that he works there, and obviously like there's crime there, so he has a pretty bad image of the city. But other than that,
Is that something you address
Yeah.
right away, or do people ask you, and then like how do you respond?
people as in my students, or
Yeah.
yeah, so
Do you talk about it initially, or you wait for somebody to say something?
I never talk about it unless it's a teaching moment. So when I started out teaching, I had mentally decided that I'm not going to mention my hijab. Like, I wear a hijab, you're going to have to accept it. I'm your teacher. I give you your grade. And so since I started making that decision, I really never outwardly say it unless it fits with the discussion. So especially in anthropology, I teach a lot about like cultures and race and ethnicity and all these type of conversations. So
That's
then
perfect for
naturally
you too, then.
yeah, and like naturally I bring it in. So it's not like I just pull it out of the blue, like, I wear hijab and I made Fajr prayer before coming here. Like, you know what I mean? It has to fit.
Didn't you say that when you first started teaching that, like, you weren't necessarily allowed to say it unless students, like, would ask you? So then students would still ask you what you are, even though you're wearing a hijab and stuff?
Yeah, there was also that fear. Like, I didn't want to bring up my religion without there being context for it because of backlash that I felt like maybe parents would say something. And at the time I had heard about, I forget what school it was, but it was in the South. And they had taught the kite runner. They were teaching that in English. And a lot of the parents got upset. Like, we don't want our students to learn about a book about Muslims. And so I felt some type of hesitation. And there was also another story where they were learning about Islam and they were reading like the Quran, and the school got a lot of backlash. And there was another story in Anne Arundel County, but I forget. But
That's so dumb.
yeah, so I felt like I didn't want to explicitly say anything because I didn't want to get any backlash.
I think it's good that you're their teacher. I feel like it would be a different situation if you were a substitute teacher, because I've seen in my own school when there's been like, we've had like Indian substitutes, and we've had one of my friend's moms, actually, she wears hijab, she's been a substitute, and I've heard my own friends like make comments and stuff like that, saying like really racist things, and I had to be like, yo, what are you doing? Like, you can't say stuff like that. But you, like, they have to accept it.
Yeah.
Have you ever gotten anything that's been like a student said something that's like kind of out of line or anything?
Well, I think what you were saying earlier, just being there in that classroom every single day at 7:50 is teaching them diversity and teaching them that a teacher doesn't have to look a certain type of way, and that this is how a teacher can look, and she can look different, but she's still your teacher. And I've never gotten any type of derogatory comments from my students because they know me and I'm with them every single day. But one time last year, I was subbing for another teacher and I was covering her class, and it was the last period, and she had warned me before that these students are, you know, not that great.
That's the teacher's fault.
Behavior-wise. Academically, they're great. But behavior-wise, just like it's the last period and they're a rowdy bunch. And I was like, all right, whatever. So I come in, I'm at the front, and they're working on their work, and there's this group in the back, and all these boys, and they're freshmen. And they
Squad.
were just,
Squad.
Yeah, and they were like goofing off, whatever. And I hear this comment in the back, like, I forgot what the context was, but he was like, oh, she's wearing a blanket on her head. And I heard that, and I was like, I called him out on it. I like yelled at him, and I was like, come up here, give me your name right now. I'm going to talk to you after class. And we talked about it after class, and he was like, no, I just heard my uncle say something like that. So I kind of understood where he was coming from, because a lot of these students, they don't know any better. They're 14 years old. All their thoughts they're getting from their parents, their friends, or social media. So it's not like it was his original idea that he thought I wore a blanket over my head. But hopefully from that conversation, because the great thing about teaching freshmen is that they're like a sponge. Their identity isn't yet formed. So me having that conversation with him hopefully altered his mentality. But
That was cold of him. He could have used a blanket. I was thinking of that the whole time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, that's
You were talking about the
good.
social media, that kids get a lot of their opinions from social media. You were recently in high school. You're a young teacher. You started teaching at 21. So what was that like, going from being in a classroom as a student to what, literally 4 years later, being in there as a teacher?
So like when we were in high school, we had cell phones, we had flip phones, and then the touch phones came out, and it was like the iPhone 3, and there were even iPads and all that stuff, but everything was limited. So you couldn't call people after 9 o'clock, or you had like 2 text messages every month or whatever like that. But these students, they have unlimited capabilities with their cell phones in class. They're constantly on social media, or they're on, you know, obviously they're like texting or on video games or whatever it is. but I've kind of classified my students in one of two ways. And the first one is either a student is extremely addicted, and you can tell, like, if you were to walk in my classroom, there's students who are extremely addicted and students who are self-regulated, who are like me. And you know when to use your phone, and you know when not to.
What do you do? Do you separate them or what?
No, I don't separate them.
But you just know them?
Mentally.
I have like this key phrase, it's your grade, not mine.
Wow.
And I feel like
Oh, you're one of those.
Yeah.
It's your grade, not mine.
Wait, so you're like pretty close in age.
Yeah.
I mean, relatively to other teachers, especially to these students.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do they think of you as like cool, or are you like, because you're a very
She's
nice person, but I feel like, are you like
Are you
the
strict,
opposite when
or
you're teaching?
cool?
Like that's where you let it out so you can be nice in person.
No, I think I don't mean to, like, I don't want to brag or like talk too much about myself, but I'm definitely cool, but that's because I get it.
Okay.
Like,
you're
I get
definitely
when
not
they're
cool, because teachers that say that they're cool definitely
are the
are.
worst.
I definitely am. I mean,
Why are you cool?
because
Prove
I
it.
like when they're on their phone and I'm talking, like
You
it's not
Snapchat 'em, like,
disrespectful.
hey, stop.
No, but it's not disrespectful. Like, I have teachers who are more seasoned, more experienced, and they hate students using their cell phone. And I don't say anything out loud because I'm afraid I'll get persecuted by the other teachers. But in my mind, I'm just like, dude, like, they're on their phone. Like, who cares? Because I get it. Because when I'm in college, I'm on my phone all the time too, but I'm still listening and I'm still getting the grades. And the students who are in my class and they're using their phone all the time, they still get great grades. Like, they wouldn't be at that school if they didn't. So there's just like this, I think it's a generational
That's
gap, but I don't know. It doesn't offend me like it offends other teachers.
Do you ever say, "I'll wait"?
Yeah,
I'll
I
wait.
do.
What are some common phrases
God,
you use?
you're definitely not cool. You say it's your grade, not mine, and I'll wait. I'll wait is the worst
And she
thing.
said,
in the
I definitely am cool.
So some common phrases, usually I just call the person by their name. Like, if you're doing something wrong and say you're on your phone while I'm talking or I'm giving like a lecture, I'll be like, Shamir. And then you'll like look at me.
Dang.
How quick,
And then that's it.
How quick does it take for you to like learn everyone's names?
Like the second week I got it.
Dang.
And I teach 120 students every day,
Wow.
5 times a day.
The difference that I've noticed between our generation and theirs, which I don't know, the generations, is that they're a lot more like socially active. Do you see that in the classroom?
Okay, so the Parkland shooting that happened in Florida early in February. So the school that I teach at is very politically active, and when we were their age, we definitely weren't at all. And so I walked into this school, and I've been there for a year and a half, and these students are amazing. I mean, academically they're awesome, but then politically, and they're just so socially aware, and they're very into social justice movements. So with the Parkland shooting, the first walkout I think was the week after on a Wednesday, and I was teaching, and it was the middle of the day, and we were talking about something with government. It was my freshman, and it was 11:30 or around 11, and like half the class just gets up and they're like ready to walk out.
Did you know that?
No, I had no idea. This was the very
wow.
first walkout.
Okay.
And they walk out, or they're getting ready to walk out, and I'm like, stop, where do you think you're going? Right? I was like freaked out. They were like, Mrs. Khan, like, we love you and we love this class, but we're doing the walkout. I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, the walkout for the Parkland shooting, it's going to be 17 minutes long, 1 minute for each person who passed away. And I was like, what? And I didn't know if I
You thought
didn't
they were
know.
pranking you?
Yeah.
Oh.
If I didn't know, that meant that none of the other teachers knew either. And the principal probably didn't know either, because we would get like a staff email.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like freaked out. I was like, no, you can't go. You can't, because I didn't believe them.
Yeah.
So I like rushed out, and I went across the hallway, and like a lot of other students were leaving. And then like I figured it out, and I was like, all right, you can go. But I didn't know how to feel about it.
All right, you're cool now.
Okay. So I didn't know how to feel about it. As a teacher, it was just a weird moment. But because they walked out and because they had that power, like, I could never imagine being their age and walking out like that. Like, I would be terrified to walk out of one of my classes.
What's the conversation like between you and the other teachers, are you guys do you have to like think about these things when there's anything politically or socially going on?
Yeah, we have to think first, is it going to disrupt the education of everyone else? Because if it disrupts their learning, then it's illegal and that you can get suspended for it.
As a teacher?
As a student.
Okay.
So that's number one, and that's what the students always have to check. And if it's not disruptive, that means that they're legally allowed to engage in whatever action it is, like a walkout. So then once the teachers figure that out, obviously we follow the lead of the principal. But then, for example, with the walkout, we had acknowledged that this is them practicing their First Amendment rights and fighting for their lives, and they acknowledge that they need to be heard.
That's dope.
And like, we as teachers need to support them, because as adults and as like teachers and administrators, we often dilute their feelings and don't take into account what these 14 and 18-year-old students are thinking. So with the walkout, initially we were surprised, but then eventually we became supportive.
Do you personally feel anything like when like, are you scared of anything that could happen in your classroom or in your school?
Yeah, so I think the week of the shooting, that following weekend, there was like a threat to our school made over social media.
Oh, man.
And then on the Monday coming in, like the students had to get checked with metal detectors, but it was just like this weird social media thing, and some student was trying to be funny. But other than that, I don't feel any type of threat. And I think that's a very big stereotype that I've had to face. Like when I tell people, and when I meet someone for the first time, they're like, oh, what do you do? I work in the city. And they're like, oh. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, oh, you work in the ghetto. Or do you like work somewhere where it's safe? Or you teach urban kids. And I hate the word.
That's not who's shooting up the schools, though.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah. Mm-hmm. Going back to the politically active thing, so something else that I've noticed besides the walkout is something called Denim Day.
What's that?
So one of my students from last year, she came to me 2 weeks ago. She was like, Ms. Khan, I want you to be the sponsor for this. It's Denim Day. And I was like, what is Denim Day? And this is a student who's very politically active, and she's only 15 years old. And she was like, so Denim Day is April 25th. And in 1998, in Italy, the Italian Supreme Court overturned a ruling from this rape case. And the context of it is this 18-year-old girl was driving with her 45-year-old instructor, and he told her to pull over, and he raped her. And so she went home, she told her parents, and the rapist was like, if you tell your parents, I'll kill you. She went home, she told her parents anyway, they filed a lawsuit, and they won. And then the rapist overturned it, and eventually it went up to the Supreme Court. And so the justices had decided that because she was wearing really tight jeans, that she had to have helped him in taking off her jeans. And in taking off her jeans, she gave him consent to have sex.
Dang.
Right. What? So the next day, all these women in Italy, they started to wear jeans and protest. And ever since then, 19 years later, April 25th is Denim Day. So this girl...
So is that globally or just in Italy?
It's globally.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think about 8 states in the United States recognize it as a day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this girl comes in and she's like, I want to do this, and I want on Wednesday for it to be a dress down day because they wear a uniform, for students to wear denim in support of sexual assault awareness. And I was flabbergasted that this 15-year-old girl is coming to me and she knows about this day that's, is very important, but I don't know about it.
Yeah.
Like,
that's really cool that she came up to you and said that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you have that type of power, or you had to talk to the principal or something? Or
so she's the one who actually talked to the principal.
Okay.
I was just CC'd on the email because she needed a teacher.
Got it.
So
did it go through?
Yeah, it went through. So this Wednesday it's
What's
gonna
her
be
next? Oh wait, you can.
Yeah.
Yo, shout out to you, denim girl.
Denim.
Yeah. So you guys should wear denim on that day too.
I always wear denim.
I'll wear tight denim on that day.
Yeah.
From the girls section.
Good. But I mean, that's just one example. We have City Block at our school, and they're doing Formation Week where they bring to light blackness and embracing their heritage.
Formation. Is that what
that's where it comes from, because that was
snap.
Beyonce's entire thing. So Monday for that week is like Mind Wrap Monday, where all the girls and guys are gonna like wrap their hair up. Because 2 years ago, the school actually suspended wearing scarves. Like, you can't wear scarves unless it's religious. So Formation Week is a form of rebellion against the school's policy.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Look at these kids. They're like so much more intellectual than we ever were.
Yeah, and they were like, it's like assimilation, and they're forcing, you know, us to get rid of our Black heritage. And that's why we're going to have Formation Week. And it was awesome.
Do you think that getting, I'm not going to say caught up, but like putting so much focus and attention on all these different social issues and everything distracts from their education in any way?
No, I think it enhances it 100%. Because, for example, with me, I'm just straight academics. That's it. But that's because in high school, that's all that anyone ever taught me. Like, there was no social justice movements, and it's not like there weren't any social justice movements around. It was just never brought to light. Yeah, it was never cared about. And it's like, walkouts aren't a new thing, especially led by students. I mean, if you think about the 1970s and all the walkouts, like the East LA walkouts were huge ones. But I guess when we were in high school, it just wasn't, it was just academics. And these students, they know how to write, they know how to speak, they know how to, you know, demand attention on social media.
It's a confidence booster too, I guess.
Yeah.
Out of all your teachers, you're probably one of the younger ones.
Mm-hmm.
Does that age gap, like, do you see any differences in, like, or any major differences in teaching styles or handling these social justice situations or anything? Do you see that?
I think on my end, I'm very inexperienced, and I don't know enough about actually helping students with these movements and like taking them on civil rights trip throughout the South so they can learn about, you know, their ancestry with slavery. Like, I have no idea about that stuff, and I don't know how to organize it. But there are these other teachers who are older and more seasoned, and they've been around for like the Vietnam War, and they've been around for like this one teacher, in the department. He was about to get arrested for refusing to be drafted into the war, but then Muhammad Ali went to the Supreme Court and he won, so he didn't get arrested. So like, there are these teachers who are, I admire so much more because they have that. They're like my goals. I want to be like them.
Nice.
Yeah.
You were talking earlier about, you know, you being a city teacher and your parents having a certain, or your family having this sort of like outlook on what that might mean. But like, what are some other stereotypes that you get of a city teacher?
I think beyond the idea that I'm teaching urban kids, so along with that, I'm in graduate school, and I had this one professor last semester, and in that class, it's all these other teachers, and I'm the only teacher in there who teaches at a city school. And she was saying, "Oh, you're a social studies teacher, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then she like narrows in on me with her body, and she's like, "But your students aren't going to four-year colleges, right?"
Oh,
and I was
wow.
like,
"Oh, wow, what?"
She was like, I was like, "What?" And she was like, "No, I mean, they're going to two-year colleges, right?" I was like, "What are you insinuating?" Like, I didn't even know what to say. And she was like, "Oh, no, never mind. And we like went on to another topic. But that had like scarred me, and I went into school the next day, and I actually told my students that story. And I told them, and I was like, this is a stereotype on you, and you need to defeat that, and you need to show people that you get into Ivy League schools, and you go into Brown, and you get into Harvard, and you go into these amazing colleges. Like, don't become what they paint you as."
That's two cool check marks for you.
But that's something else that gets me too, when people are like, "Oh, you work in the city and you teach like urban students," which is another word I hate, urban, because they don't know that like these students wake up at 5 a.m. every morning just to go to school. Their parents don't always drop them off. They have all these obstacles to face. They still get those amazing grades, and they still go to those great colleges.
Do you have a long-term goal with it? Or like what you hope to get out of it, or like what you hope that your students get out of it?
I just hope for my students, I just hope that I kind of give them a speech at the end of every year so far, but I just hope that they learn to be nice to each other and like accept each other. If that's like anything that I've been able to teach them, like being a Muslim woman and standing in front of you every day and, you know, teaching things that I teach outside of government, is just being tolerant and being nice to each other. And if that's the only thing I gave them, I think that's important. You don't need to learn research skills. I know. It's
That's
sentimental.
awesome.
I don't cry about this stuff.
Also, I wanted to ask, what So you're biracial. Like, has that been an obstacle at all, or like, what is the pros of that or cons?
So growing up, I saw all the cons and all the negatives.
All
And
the cons, Khan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because her last name's Khan.
Yeah, both of ours.
Yeah. That's why
so-
she's my wife.
Yeah, exactly.
Cute.
So, yeah, I definitely saw all the negatives, even like outside of middle school. I felt judged a lot, and it's very similar to being like mixed black and mixed white. Like it's same dynamic, but I don't speak either language. So I don't speak Arabic and I don't speak Urdu. And that one, I guess, fault that I have has made me...
It's two.
True.
Really?
Sorry. I'm just...
She talks about how it's a fault, and you remind her that it's more than just one.
But
She had two chances.
but that one fault that I have has really, when I was growing up, really made me take a step back from both cultures. And I think that's when I got into Islam, because I don't need to know a language to know that, to like be accepted into Islam. It's like very judge free. And that's when I kind of found my niche with that. But not speaking the language, I've noticed, has been a very touchy topic, and a lot of people judge me for that.
Do you feel dragged by either community, like you're with us, or you're with us, or like you're not with us?
Yeah.
No, at this point, I've kind of found my own self-identity, and I don't really want to be associated with either or. Like, I'm NAUREEN KHAN, and I'm biracial, and it took me a long time.
And I'm a cool teacher.
Exactly. I'm a cool teacher.
Get with it.
Yeah. But it took me a long time to find that empowerment within myself, and I still feel that, like, self-doubt, even, like, with, like, transitioning into getting married and, like, recognizing that I don't know the language that my future in-laws speak, and it's a lot of insecurities that come with just not speaking this language that, you know, my parents didn't teach me. And so when I tell people that, like, I don't speak the language, the entire time I've been growing up, even, like, close relatives who do speak it, they're like, oh, you should know Urdu. And when they say that, I used to feel like, why are you attacking my parents? Because my parents know they didn't teach me Arabic or Urdu, but they gave me everything, like, in this country. And just because I don't know a language invalidates who I am or invalidates my racial background, or the fact that I'm not, like, Paki enough, or I'm not Arab enough. And it's similar to this interview that Gina Rodriguez gave on how people were criticizing her not speaking Spanish well enough on Jane the Virgin. And she was saying that speaking a language isn't the only requirement for being Hispanic. Like, that's not all it is. So I think, I don't know.
Even with our friends group, like, we've had, like, times, because the three of us, the other three friends of ours, we all speak Urdu, and I know that sometimes we'll make references or we'll say full-on sentences, and then we'll come back and be like, oh yeah, NAUREEN, it means this. And, like, even though we don't do it directly, like, I'm sure that over time it kind of puts, like, it's almost in a way like outcasting you a little, or, you know, we kind of have to refer back to you, like you're not included in the conversation. And I see that, like, sometimes that might, you know, be a barrier, even though we are your best friends, and, like, you know.
I think I'm just used to it. Like, I'm used to going to brown parties and, like, everyone talking in one language, and then, like, one person catches your eye and it quickly translates for you. And it's embarrassing. And I used to, like, feel a lot of resentment towards my parents for not teaching me. But then as I grew up, I realized, you know, how dare someone make me feel angry at my parents.
And real quick, like, you went from the transition of, you know, not associating with your culture or religion as much to having a hijab and, like, really having more friends, I guess, that are brown and things like that. But at the same time, like, your friend group is more outgoing. And there's a stereotype with, like, people when they see somebody with a hijab on that, like, oh, they're probably very, like, you know, to themselves, reserved and all about their religion, and that's all that they do. What are your views on that?
I think that's true that, yeah, women who do wear hijab are obviously pretty modest, and obviously they might have some type of connection, you know, whatever is personal. But that's not to invalidate someone who doesn't wear a scarf. It means that they're any less religious, or they're any less, like, conservative, or any less modest. Like, in no way does me wearing this scarf mean that, like, I'm a better Muslim or I'm less outgoing. there are like Muslim women out there who are, you know, having all these businesses, and they're bloggers and they're YouTubers. So I think it's a huge misconception. But I definitely played into that growing up.
Nice. If you want to shout out like your social media or anything, or like anything that you might do on the side, wink, wink.
You got anything that you're doing, Beans?
Yeah, you can check me out on Etsy.
Hey.
Stamp of approval.
What are you doing on Etsy?
So when I was in college to pay the bills, me and my mom did this little candle business called Gifts of Noor, and we just make these Islamic candles, and it's like for Eid or Ramadan or weddings or whatever it is. So you can stop by there.
That's cool.
That's so dope. Okay,
How did you find out like how to make candles?
So I actually wanted to give it for a gift to somebody, and I wanted to personalize it to get in their good graces. And when I was like trying to find a way to do it, so obviously I YouTubed it, and I saw a lot of people doing like the candle business. So then I experimented a little bit, and then I just figured it out. And
That's
from
awesome.
there, yeah.
You could probably just like save up a ton of your earwax like in a jar over time, and then just stick a what's the thing in
Wick.
the wick?
Wick.
A wick?
Yeah.
Just stick a wick in it.
Would you like my earwax as a candle?
Yeah, let's collect it in a jar and then sell it.
Okay.
Dude,
No,
this is
what
big
about
business.
what if I give it to you as a gift? Would you like that? My earwax?
Well, yeah, then it adds. Then I can sell it.
No, but to
Especially-
keep it.
No, I'm not gonna keep it. I'm gonna
Why
sell
not?
it.
You don't want my earwax?
Yo, like Shimmer's earwax candle, dude. Imagine if you had like Kanye West's earwax candle.
I don't need that.
It's a new business.
All right. How about Kim Kardashian's earwax?
Maybe.
Cardi B's.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, 100%.
See, Noreen, I always knew that you were dope, and you've always been so kind to us. But I feel like we've gotten to a new level now,
Good.
where hearing your story and everything, like, mad respect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I know that you're a cool teacher.
Thank you.
Me too. Let's add an extra 5 years onto our relationship from this conversation.
Exactly.
So your friend Amber brought you on here. I think Amber will do the honors in asking you the most important question.
If you could be any flavor, if you could describe yourself as any flavor, what would it be and why?
Earwax.
Please don't forget earwax.
I think it would have to be marshmallow.
Why?
Don't act like
Halal?
you didn't write that down on your thing.
Halal
She
marshmallow.
took a pause. She took a pause like, oh, let me think about it. You definitely wrote that down.
I definitely did.
Is it halal?
Is it a halal marshmallow?
Jet puff? Jet puff? You guys don't
Jet puff?
Yeah, so marshmallow, just because I think it's soft and it's sweet and it goes with anything and it's lovable.
Aww.
Beansy.
I know.
That's so cool, marshmallow.
Yeah.
I like that.
Good.
Well, we wish you the best of luck with
Thank you.
everything that you take on in life, and for your students too, because I know that they're benefiting from everything that you are. And yeah, thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
We appreciate
thanks for
you.
having me. Thank you.
For everybody listening, thank you for listening to another episode of Strange Flavors. It's been another week.
Another flavor.
A little less stranger.
We'll talk to you next time.
Life's been like this, I'm in a crisis while you were reminiscing and miss. She gave me a kiss, now I'm thinking, what is this? I get too deep, too sentimental. Stays in my mental, was I just a rental? They don't know I'm gentle, soft spoken, heartbroken. She told me open.